Okay, welcome you all for this morning. Alumni Association, PSG College of Nursing organizes a guest lecture on clinical care of patient with heart failure, a nursing perspective. Here we have Mrs. A. Kondal Devi, Assistant Nursing Superintendent, NLCIL General Hospital, Neyveli. Graduated from Sacred Heart College of Nursing, Madurai in 1999 and post-graduation from PSG College of Nursing, Coimbatore in 2007. Presented 3 research papers and bagged with many awards, Best Clinical Nurse Award and Best Researcher Award. In 2019, the Rotary Club of Kadalur honored Best Clinical Nurse Award. With this short introduction, I'm handing over the session to Madam. Ma'am, you can start now.
Mute. Unmute then. Huh? Hello? Students?
Ma'am, I'm audible.
Is it audible for the students?
I'll ask them.
Unstable.
Ma'am, audible only, ma'am. You can continue. Kondal ma'am is audible. Audible to the students. You can continue.
Very. Can I continue?
Yes, ma'am, you can continue.
Okay. Thank you. Very good morning to one and all joining this online session. It gives pleasure to join with you. First, at the outset, I would like to thank the organizing chairperson, the principal of nursing, for providing me this wonderful opportunity. Next, I thank our PSG management and PSG College of Nursing Alumni Association and Mrs. Sudha Priya, Associate Professor, PSG College of Nursing, Department of Medical Surgical Nursing for coordinating this program. Let us start the topic. Hello. Is it visible? Students? Dear students? Sudha Priya ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I continue the topic?
Yes, ma'am. You can continue the topic.
The screen is visible?
Screen is visible.
Okay, okay.
Visible, there is a break.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, there is a break in your voice, ma'am. You can just check once again, ma'am.
Voice breaking.
Voice is breaking in between. Just you start and proceed your presentation, ma'am. Then you can check it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Students இது பண்ணிருக்காங்க ஆடிபிளா இருக்காங்க அன்மியூட் பண்ண சொல்றாங்க பண்ணிட்டீங்களா
Topic is to introduce the topic. Heart failure is associated with unmute பண்ணனும்
பண்ணிட்டாங்க.
Ma'am, you were audible.
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you were audible, ma'am. Please continue, ma'am.
To introduce the topic, heart failure is an important cardiovascular disease due to its increasing prevalence and high mortality rate. Heart failure is associated with a diverse range of complications such as prolonged hospitalization, lethal arrhythmia, and death during the disease process. It's a terminal condition of many cardiovascular diseases. More than 20 million people all over the world affected by heart failure. In India, around 1.3 to 4.6 million people are affected by heart failure due to various reasons like coronary heart disease, hypertension, obesity, diabetes, and rheumatic heart disease. Mainly the people more than the age of 65 years is commonly affected. The life expectancy of people with heart failure mainly depends upon the quality of care provided during the hospitalization as well as during the follow-up care. Next, coming to the definition of heart failure, the heart failure is otherwise known as congestive heart failure. Heart failure is a complex clinical syndrome that can result from any structural or functional cardiac disorder that impairs the ability of the ventricle to fill with or eject blood. Congestive heart failure describes a condition where the heart muscle is weak and cannot pump as strongly as before. Coming to this picture shows the normal heart the structure of the normal heart. Here, when coming to the next picture, in congestive cardiac failure, the ventricular muscles are hypertrophied and it's unable to consume adequate amount of blood, as well as the cardiac output is reduced due to decreased amount of cardiac volume. Next, the donkey analogy is mainly used for heart failure patients. Is here the ventricular here, this donkey is overloaded with cardiac failure. Lift the weight like that, unable to pump out the blood. It depends upon the stroke volume and the heart rate. Stroke volume is dependent on three main important factors like preload, afterload, and contractility. Let's see about the preload, afterload, and contractility. As you all know that cardiac output is mainly determined by the heart rate and the stroke volume. Coming to the preload, the volume of blood is received by the heart. Just before contraction, the amount of blood which is received by the heart is called as preload. It is otherwise known as stress, cardiac stretch. And next is the afterload. Pressure or resistance the heart has to overcome to eject blood is called as afterload. It is otherwise known as squeeze. This one is preload, the amount of blood received by the heart. This one is the afterload. Afterload is against the resistant, the ventricle is pumping out. The resistant is called as the afterload. Next, coming to the classification of cardiac failure, depends upon the begins with the left ventricular failure, starts means and finally இப்ப வந்துச்சு. If pulmonary edema is not treated, death will occur from suffocation because the client literally drowns in his or her own fluids. Next, forwarded, backwarded failure, low output, high output failure, systolic and diastolic failure. Forwarded failure, an inadequate output of the affected ventricle causes decreased perfusion to vital organs. In backwarded failure, blood backs up behind the affected ventricle, causing increased pressure in the atrium behind the affected ventricle. Next, low output and high output failure. In low output failure, not enough cardiac output is available to meet the demands of the body. High output failure occurs when a condition causes the heart to work harder to meet the demands of the body. Coming to the systolic and diastolic failure, systolic is the heart is unable to contract adequately. In diastolic, it's unable to relax for receiving the blood. Failure of the cardiac muscle occurs mainly over here. Next, coming to the etiology, the main etiological factors are coronary artery disease. That is, the coronary artery disease mainly occurs due to atherosclerosis of the blood vessels, which affects the cardiac pumping. Next, valvular heart disease. Valvular heart disease are congenital heart diseases, most probably the anatomical problem which affects the contractility and force of contraction. Next, other causes are cardiomyopathy, mainly the cardiac muscles, thus microfibrils of the cardiac muscles affected in ventricles affected. So the heart is unable to relax or contract properly. Next is the hypertension is one of the most causes of cardiac failure. Next, coming to the risk factors, anemia, infection, thyrotoxicosis, arrhythmias, pulmonary embolism, pulmonary disease, nutritional deficiency, and hypovolemia are the risk factors. Other risk factors are cigarette smoking, diabetes, high blood cholesterol levels, obesity, high and low hematocrit level. Coming to the pathophysiology, mainly the Starling's law is applicable for this condition. The Starling's law is nothing but the elasticity of the heart during the relaxation. That is, after the contraction, it relaxes to receive the blood. Once the elasticity is large, it's unable to consume adequate blood. So depends upon the elasticity only, the cardiac output is maintained. It's closely mainly related to the cardiac output. Coming to the compensatory mechanisms, in order to compensate the cardiac failure, our body system, mainly the sympathetic nervous system is stimulated, and then renin-angiotensin hormonal system is activated. Then finally, due to repeated workload of the heart, the myocardial hypertrophy occurs, and finally the altered cardiac rhythm, which is known as arrhythmias, will occur. Coming to the heart failure pathophysiology, due to decreased cardiac output, there is a decreased renal blood flow to the kidneys. Once the renal blood flow is reduced, means the renin-angiotensin system is activated and aldosterone is secreted. Due to this aldosterone secretion and the renin-angiotensin mechanism, which leads into arterial and venous constriction, vasoconstriction. At the same time, the activation of sympathetic nervous system leads into increasing the heart rate. The both will affect on the arterial and venous vasoconstriction, which leads into salt and water retention and remodeling of the heart, and then stretching of the myocardium, which finally ends up with ventricular hypertrophy. Coming to the heart failure cycle, this heart failure occurs as a cycle. Once the workload of the heart is increased, there will be impaired filling or ejection of ventricles, leads into hypertrophy. Again, the preload is increased. Then due to increased preload, the cardiac output is also reduced. Hello? Ayyo. Yeah, screenshot. Screenshot.
இவ்வளவு வரலையாமா?
Hello? Next, coming to the clinical manifestations, there are two types of manifestation. One is left-sided failure manifestation. Another one is right-sided failure manifestation. In left-sided failure, the manifestations mainly pulmonic, that is, which is related to the lung. Then on right-sided failure is systemic manifestations. Like in left-sided failure, shortness of breath, dyspnea on exertion, crackles, rails at bases while auscultation, tachypnea, diaphoresis, that is increased sweating, weight gain, fatigue, extra hard sound like S3 and S4 sounds, murmur we can hear. Then mental status changes, capillary refilling will be more than 3 seconds. Coming to the right-sided failure, due to systemic overload of the fluid leads into hepatomegaly, splenomegaly, ascites, dependent pitting edema, then jugular venous distension is otherwise called as Kussmaul sign, weight gain, anorexia, and then extra heart sounds also will be here. Left ventricular failure, mainly the symptoms are paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea is nighttime dyspnea. The breathing difficulty mainly occurs during the nighttime. In auscultation, like rales, wheeze, and cough will be present. Blood tinged sputum, that is, the sputum will be mixed with blood. Restless, the patient will be restless and confused. Dyspnea and exertion present. Orthopnea, tachycardia, and cyanosis are the left-sided failure symptoms. So the patient looks like this only due to dyspnea. Suddenly, the pulmonary edema condition will occur due to this left-sided failure. The patient looks like that. While doing some activity, the patient will suddenly will go for dyspnea. Coming to the right ventricular failure, this is some systemic manifestation like distended jugular veins, ascites, fatigue, anorexia, and dependent edema. This JVP, here you can see visibly, you can see the jugular vein distension, abnormal distension of the jugular vein, pitting edema, anasarca, mainly due to systemic circulation overload, and then ascites is otherwise called as fluid collection in the abdominal cavity. This is the biventricular, in both ventricular failure, the whole body fluid volume is overloaded. It's called as anorexia, the end stage of cardiac failure. Then coming to the diagnostic assessment, first the history, appropriate history collection, then physical examination, arterial blood gas analysis, serum blood levels like other blood sugar, renal function test, liver function test, electrolytes, and other chemical analysis has to be done. The liver profile, X-ray test, hemodynamic monitoring like monitoring of blood pressure, pulse, and SpO2. Next 12 leads ECG, nuclear imaging like studies like CT and MRI, lung, cardiac catheterization, and 2D echocardiogram. Coming to the chest X-ray, the heart will be dilated cardiomyopathy will be visualized during the X-ray. Then coming to the pharmacological management aspect, there is a diet approach is followed for medical management of cardiac failure. One is to diagnose the etiology and severity of left ventricular dysfunction, then initiate the diuretic therapy and AC inhibitor, angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor, beta blockers, spironolactone, then digoxin, educate the patient about diet, exercise, lifestyle, and cardiovascular risk. Finally, titrate to optimize the AC inhibitor, optimize the beta blockers. That same treatment is the main drugs used are AC inhibitors, diuretics, inotropics, beta blockers, and calcium channel blockers. So, vasodilators are called as enalapril, captopril, lisinopril, which ends with pril, also called otherwise called as calcium channel blockers. Vasodilators, diuretics like furosemide is used. Then inotropics, digoxin is the cardioglycoside inotropic. This digoxin increases the contractility of the heart. Beta blockers are metoprolol, carvedilol, bisoprolol. Calcium channel blockers are nifedipine, diltiazem, verapamil, amlodipine, and felodipine. Treating the congestive cardiac failure, upload fast is used. The mnemonics is upload, unload fast is used. First one is providing upright position, then giving nitrates for vasodilatation, then Lasix, the diuretic, oxygen, then AC inhibitors, and digoxin. The digoxin is the drug of choice for cardiac failure. Next is the reduce the fluids, reduce the afterload, and sodium retention has to be reduced. Finally, all blood investigation, the test has to be done. Mainly the serum potassium level has to be monitored. Coming to the non-pharmacological management, treating the cause. If it is due to any coronary artery disease, CABG has to be done. If the cardiac failure is due to valvular disease, valvular replacement. Then if it is due to conduction problem, means pacemaker has to be implanted. Then biventricular failure occurs, means the heart has to be transplanted. Then for ventricular failure, bilateral ventricular failure, ventricular assistive device is used. And then cardiac resynchronization therapy helps to improve the cardiac output. Let us see in detail. This is CABG and percutaneous coronary intervention, which is called as angioplasty, is done for treating the patients with coronary artery disease due to atherosclerosis. If any cardiac problem, that is cardiac myocardial infarction and injury occurs, which ends with cardiac failure, means that has to be treated by the surgical management like coronary artery bypass grafting and angioplasty. Next is the heart transplantation. That heart is transplanted when the biventricular failure occurs. Like the same way, the ventricular assistive device also implanted when biventricular failure occurs. Then valvular replacement for valvular heart disease is the cause for cardiac failure. Then biventricular pacemaker is used to stimulate the cardiac impulses when the cardiac conduction system affected, which leads into cardiac failure. And then ventricular resynchronization therapy, and then stem cell therapy. The stem cell therapy is the recent trends in the management of cardiac failure. Here the stem cells are programmed into cardiac specific cells, which is injected over the dead cells in the myocardium. So that in place of dead cells, this stem cells are injected. This injected stem cells acting as a real myocardial cells, which helps to improve the cardiac contractility. Then coming to the nursing management. First, the nursing and collaborative management. The nurses are having the great responsibility while providing the medications like digitalis therapy. When giving the digitalis therapy, the nurse's responsibility. This is the major therapy of congestive cardiac failure. It has a positive inotropic effect. There is a chance for digoxin toxicity. The antidote for toxicity is digibind. The nursing responsibility during administering this digitalis, this digoxin, is first we have to assess the heart rate before administration. If below 60 or above 120 means we should not give this drug. Then monitor serum potassium level. When the serum potassium level is very low, means this digitalis should not be given because it increases the toxicity of digoxin. Then assess for signs of digoxin toxicity, bradycardia, gastrointestinal manifestations like anorexia, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, dysarrhythmias, altered visual perceptions. In male, we can see gynecomastia and in decreased libido and impotence. Next, coming to the diuretic therapy, to decrease the cardiac workload by reducing the circulating volume and thereby reduce the preload. In order to reduce the preload, the diuretics are given, which helps to reduce the volume of the fluid in the body. Commonly used diuretics are diazide diuretics, loop diuretics, and potassium sparing diuretics. The nurse's responsibility while administering these diuretics are we have to assess for hypokalemia when administering the loop and diazide diuretics. Why we have to look for hypokalemia? Students, I want to ask a question in this. Anybody can answer? Why we have to observe a hypokalemia when administering this diuretics? So let me answer. While administering this loop diuretics and diazide diuretics, along with the urine, more amount of potassium is excreted. Diuretics means which removes fluid from the body. That is, the fluid is excreted through urine. So along with the urine, the serum potassium is also reduced in blood. So hypokalemia we have to monitor, and then depends upon the serum potassium level. The potassium has to be administered orally. If hypokalemia persists, which leads into again arrhythmias, irregular heart rhythm. It's the emergency condition, arrhythmias. Give potassium supplement and potassium rich foods. Then administer this. All these diuretics has to be given only in the morning or in the early afternoon. We should not give it at the night time, because when we are giving the diuretics at night time, the patient has the tendency to pass urine in the night, so the sleep will be disturbed. So always keep it in your mind that all diuretics mostly has to be given in the morning only. Then coming to the vasodilators, the vasodilators are mainly given to reduce the peripheral vascular resistance, to decrease the afterload by decreasing the resistance to ventricular emptying. The main vasodilators are nitroprusside, hydralazine, nifedipine, and captopril. The nurse's responsibility while administering these vasodilators are, you have to watch for orthostatic hypotension. Mainly when the patient moves here and there, or when the patient wants to go to bathroom or to meet the self-care needs, we have to accompany the patient. Otherwise, the patient may fall down due to orthostatic hypotension. Then the main key roles for the nurses for patient with cardiac failure is, it starts from the emergency department. That is rapid triage has to be done in the emergency department. Depends upon the patient's condition. The patient is shifted to the cardiac care unit or cardiology ward or the general medical ward. Then we have to monitor for the signs and symptoms. Then this includes the discharge. Till the discharge, the nurse has to plan the patient care. Mainly, the patient is having severe anxiety when the patient is having this cardiac failure due to shortness of breath, and fear of death also will be there. Then initial nursing assessment in the emergency department. As a nurse, what are the assessment we have to do in the emergency department? Is mainly we are receiving the patient with this condition, this congestive cardiac failure, mainly representing the dyspnea on exertion and PND, paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea, sudden onset of dyspnea during sleep. At midnight only the patient has to come to the casualty. The objective measurement of dyspnea severity, we have to do like respiratory rate, dyspnea severity scale, tolerance of lying in whether the patient is able to lie down in the prone position. This patient is unable to lie down in prone position due to shortness of breath. Then oxygen saturation has to be monitored. Then hemodynamic monitoring like systolic and diastolic BP monitoring. Heart rhythm has to be monitored for its rate rhythm. Then 12-lead ECG has to be taken. And cardiac output is monitored by checking the temperature, whether the peripheries are chill or cold or warmth, we have to monitor. Then peripheral perfusion has to be done by checking the capillary refilling, then watch for urinary output and the patient's mental status. Why we have to monitor the mental status means the patient will be having decreased cerebral blood flow. The cerebral perfusion will be altered. So the patient's mental status will be altered. The patient may be confused, in the confused state. Coming to the clinical examination, for signs of congestion, we have to watch. Then pulmonary rails, pulmonary edema, peripheral edema, jugular venous pressure has to be observed. Then coming laboratory tests like all complete blood count, that serum electrolytes level, creatinine, glucose, troponin, and natriuretic peptide level. Then anxiety level, using the objective assessment tool, we have to assess the level of anxiety, mild, moderate, or severe. Then coming to the acute pulmonary edema. Acute pulmonary edema, the condition is an emergency condition which occurs due to acute decompensated heart failure. There is a compensatory mechanism takes place when the cardiac failure occurs. When the compensation fails, it's called as decompensated heart failure. That time there is an accumulation of fluid in the alveoli. This is the normal alveoli where the gas exchange is taking place freely. In case of pulmonary edema, there is a fluid collection in the alveoli which alters the gas exchange between the alveoli and the pulmonary blood vessels. In acute pulmonary edema assessment, what are the assessment we have to look? severe dyspnea and orthopnea, pallor, tachycardia, large amount of blood-drenched frothy sputum, wheezing and crackles on auscultation, bubbling respirations, acute anxiety, apprehension, restlessness, profuse sweating, cold and clammy skin, cyanosis, nasal flaring, use of accessory muscles for breathing, like diaphragm and the neck muscles are used for breathing. Not only the chest muscles, along with the chest muscles, the diaphragm and the neck muscles are used, called as using of accessory muscles for breathing. We have to watch. And tachypnea and hypocapnia. Hypocapnia means decreased carbon dioxide level in the blood. How it occurs means the patient is repeatedly taking breath. Due to repeated hyperventilation, the most amount of carbon dioxide is exhaled, which leads into hypocapnia. Coming to the management of acute pulmonary edema, we have to provide high Fowler's position. The high Fowler's position helps the lung to expand and the patient can breathe easily. This is the main thing we have to do, is providing high Fowler's position. Then morphine sulfate 10 to 15 milligrams should be administered IV. This morphine sulfate is a drug of choice for pulmonary edema, where the patient is having more anxiety also will be reduced. This helps to reduce the preload and afterload, morphine sulfate. Then oxygen therapy. The oxygen has to be given 40 to 70% by nasal cannula or face mask. Then coming to other drugs are aminophylline. Aminophylline is otherwise called as bronchodilator. This helps to relieve the bronchospasm and increases the urinary output and also the cardiac output. Then digitalization. Rapidly we have to do the digitalization. Digitalization is nothing but giving the digoxin is called as digitalization. Then diuretic therapy is giving the thiazide or loop diuretics, potassium sparing diuretics. So while giving the diuretics, we have to monitor the serum potassium level. Diuresis may result to hyperkalemia, we already discussed. Then coming to the nursing management, main nursing management congestive cardiac failure is providing oxygenation, administering oxygen therapy per nasal cannula 2 to 6 liters per minute. Evaluate ABG analysis, arterial blood gas analysis, semi-Fowler's or high Fowler's position to promote greater lung expansion. Here, the altered gas exchange, that is impaired gas exchange pressure. These are all the interventions we supposed to do. Next is the activity intolerance. Mainly the patient is unable to perform any activity due to decreased cardiac output. So provide bed rest, or initially we have to provide bed rest, and then limited activity will be allowed with supervision. Then provide an overbed table, like cardiac table has to be provided to the patient along with pillow, which makes the patient to feel comfortable and doing some activities like eating and reading and so on. Then use pillows. Administered diazepam, that is Valium 2 to 10 milligram, which helps to reduce the fear and anxiety. And then gradual ambulation is encouraged to prevent venous thrombosis and embolism. Due to prolonged hospitalization in the bed, prolonged bedridden patients tend to develop venous thrombosis due to stasis of blood in the blood vessels, which leads into thrombus formation. Finally, it ends with emboli, which is a medical emergency. In order to prevent that condition, gradual ambulation has to be provided. We should not allow the patient always lying in the bed. So make the patient to make some activities gradually, like making them to sit in the bed and then to the chair and then walking around the bed. Small activities can be allowed. Next. Assess for signs of activity intolerance, like while the patient is moving, watch for dyspnea, fatigue, and increased pulse rate. Then decreasing the anxiety. The anxiety is the main problem along with the shortness of breath among cardiac failure patients. So they will be having fear of death, and due to dyspnea also they will be having more fear and anxiety. We have to allow the patient to ventilate their feelings. So we should provide calm and quiet environment. We should talk to them in friendly manner, and then only they will ventilate their feelings. That helps them to reduce the anxiety. Give the supportive environment, like giving the positive reinforcement. Identify whether the patient is able to, according to the patient's condition, we have to give the psychological support. Then fluid balance, because there will be a fluid volume overload and the patient is having edema all over the body, like peripheral edema, pedal edema, ascites. Then jugular vein distension also present. So the fluid volume has to be maintained by controlling of sodium intake. The salt intake has to be reduced, administer diuretics and digitalis, monitor intake output chart, weight has to be measured, daily weight has to be measured, and vital signs has to be monitored. Next, dry phlebotomy. Next, we will see in detail about the dry phlebotomy is a new technique which is used to reduce the preload and afterload, which helps to improve the cardiac output and reduces the cardiac workload. Then providing skin care. Why we have to provide skin care means, most importantly, the patient is having the skin changes due to edema. The edematous skin tends to develop the pressure sores. So appropriate skin care to be given to prevent pressure sores, mainly in the sacral area for bedridden patients. Then promoting nutrition. Provide bland, low calorie, low residue diet along with the vitamin supplementation. The diet, instead of giving 3 times a meals, you can divide into 6 times. Small frequent meals can be provided. It will be easy for the patient for digestion. No ordered salt diet to be prescribed. No processed food has to be given. Then coming to the elimination, mainly the patient is having the problem as elderly people and patient who is bedridden tend to have the constipation. When the patient is training for during the defecation, even the patient is straining means which leads into Valsalva maneuver, which the cardiac, due to Valsalva maneuver, the cardiac workload, cardiac strain is increased. It aggravates the cardiac failure. So all the patients who is having the constipation should be given with laxatives to prevent the constipation. And we have to provide a bedside commode for easy elimination. Then coming to the rotating tourniquet bloodless phlebotomy is nothing but in order to raise the preload, that's not to reduce the cardiac workload. Alternatively, we have to tie the tourniquet. We all know the tourniquet, no? For taking blood, we used to tie the tourniquet over the arm and then you will take the blood. So the 3 tourniquets has to be taken, and one has to be in the right upper arm, one in the both lower arms. Then according like that clockwise direction, it has to be altered, the tying. Then every 15 minutes it has to be released. This technique helps to reduce the pre and after load of the heart. Then teaching, mainly health education. We have to teach the client and family about the self-care of the patient. We have at home, we have to make the patient to recognize the symptoms like dyspnea, orthopnea, and all. Early identification of the symptoms helps to attend the hospital as early as possible, and treatment has to be started as earlier. Then avoid fatigue, like balancing between the rest and activity. Then giving the sodium restricted diet and small frequent meals. And then medications has to be taken according to the doctor's advice. And we have to explain about the importance of regular follow-up care. Then coming to the nursing diagnosis, the problem we can list are inadequate oxygenation, excessive fluid, low cardiac output, anxiety, activity intolerance, and knowledge deficit. Then the possible nursing diagnosis we can make are the following are the possible nursing diagnosis: impaired gas exchange related to ventilation perfusion imbalance, decreased cardiac output related to altered contractility, preload and afterload, fluid volume excess related to cardiac failure, activity intolerance related to fatigue secondary to cardiac insufficiency, disturbed sleep pattern related to nocturnal dyspnea, anxiety related to dyspnea and fear of death, knowledge deficit related to disease process. So that is for the gas exchange, impaired gas exchange. These are all the intervention. Nasal oxygen mask has to be provided. Consider BiPAP machine for ventilation. Then prepare the patient for intubation for connecting with the ventilator. For fluid volume, excessive fluid volume management is maintaining strict IO chart, calculate fluid balance, monitor electrolytes, monitor lung sounds, and administer diuretics as ordered by the physician. Next, to increase the cardiac output. So to treat the low cardiac output, continuous cardiac monitoring, assess and treat dysarrhythmias, monitor vital signs, capillary refilling, edema, and mental status, blood investigation is to be done, then administer medications to increase the cardiac output, like that's inotropics, dopamine and dopamine. That is, we already discussed about vasodilators, ACE inhibitors, and beta blockers. The next, anxiety also we have discussed. Activity intolerance also we discussed. The knowledge deficit also we have to give patient education regarding review of that is heart failure diagnosis and treatment. Symptoms of heart failure like shortness of breath or wheezing, difficulty breathing when lying down, frequent dry cough, feeling tired or weak, weight gain of 3 or more pounds in one day or 5 pounds in more than 1 week, swelling in feet, ankles, legs, or stomach. That has to be identified whether if any symptoms are present, they have to meet the physician as early as possible. Then patient counseling should be given regarding lifestyle changes, monitoring for changes, then medications and surgical management. Lifestyle changes like if they are smoking, having the big habit of smoking, that has to be stopped. The weight gain has to be reduced. That is, the patient has to lose the weight, avoid and limit alcohol, avoid and limit caffeine, eat low fat and low sodium diet, then exercise gradually. And the reduce stress, keep track of symptoms and weight, and report any changes or concern to the doctor. Limit fluid intake, see the doctor more frequently if the patient is having any symptoms. Then coming to the conclusion, most of the cardiovascular diseases ends with cardiac failure. As a nurse, we should have adequate knowledge and skill to provide appropriate patient care. Application of this knowledge and skill in clinical practice helps to improve the patient's recovery and reduces the repeated hospitalization, prevents complications, and improves the quality of life of heart failure patients. So mainly the life expectancy and the prognosis of the patient depends upon the quality of care we provide at the hospital. Then as a nurse, let us make positive changes in someone's life by providing quality care. By providing quality care, we can make a lot of changes in our patient's life. So be proud to be a nurse. I conclude with that. Thank you. Any questions? Any doubt regarding nursing management, pathophysiology?
Students, you can interact with the madam. If you have any doubts, you can ask.
You can unmute.
Anybody has come across with the patient, like patients with cardiac failure during your clinical posting? Dear students.
Students, you please unmute, ma. Mute your system.
Unmute.
Students, students.
Any doubts?
Students, anything you want to discuss with madam? So anything you want to discuss with
I think everything is cleared for the students. No doubt.
Go ahead.
No, now only they unmuted, ma'am. Students, please come forward.
Okay. Check your mic.
Ma, otherwise you put it in chat box.
Yes, sure. So, Sudha Priya.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Students, anything you want to ask?
Can I share something to the Can I share something to the students? அப்ப கேக்கலையா You are second year students? Second year BSc nursing?
Yes, ma'am. They are second year nursing.
Okay. Sudha can talk to students.
Yes, ma'am. Another ma'am has went.
Sudha Priya madam.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am has went to class. She will check it, ma'am. I'll let you know.
How do you do all? Five people entered the Karthika, Shalini, Manipal, Sangeeta. Hello? என்ன கேட்டாங்கன்னு புரியல.
Viveka, talk one more time.
Can you repeat the question? It's not audible.
Hold your mic a little low and you can talk, no?
Not
Viveka. Ma'am, students are saying thanks to you for your session. Any doubts you have, students? Anything you want to discuss? Viveka?
Sudha Priya ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to leave a message for the student.
Yes, ma'am.
Being a part of alumni.
Yes, ma'am, you can talk to them.
So dear students, I am so proud to be alumni of PSG College of Nursing. So I'm so happy to see you all the students. I worked as assistant professor for the past for 4 years in PSG College of Nursing along with Sudha Priya ma'am. Really, the days are golden period in my life. You are so lucky to study in such a renowned institution. So I tell you all the students, Wherever you go, shine and keep the name of PSG and make the difference in your life. That's the message I want to leave you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your comprehensive session. I feel this is a topic is more appropriate for current clinical practice. Thank you once again, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudha Priya, all the students for your active listening and participation. Thank you once again.
Thank you, ma'am.